there was a hole in my heart, right? And I was searching for that fulfillment. And I was looking for fulfillment with whether it be girls or whether it be the football. And that was a big thing, and basketball and all the sports that became things that would fulfill me, so to speak. And so being popular, being accepted, I was so desperate to be accepted that I would do things against my own better judgment.
So you think that came with peer pressure? That's kind of when the drugs started.
Because I don't want you to leave me.
Sure.
I don't want you to abandon me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so,
well, some people are
if you
trying
want
to
me
use that to gain approval of people.
Yeah.
I would say that was more kind of in line with why I did some things I shouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely didn't take the same path you did quite as dramatically, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to compare. It's not
Yeah.
apples to apples. But then there's the other side of I'm trying to escape from something. And I think those are two very, very different things.
Yes.
You're trying to gain approval versus you're trying to get away from situations in your mind or in your life or in your family. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
think it was much more of the gaining approval?
Yeah, mine was more of a chase than a
Okay.
running from.
All right.
Definitely more of a chase, because what I got from God, obviously, but what I got from those experiences was like, all I wanted was at the end of the day, I just wanted Dad to hug me and tell me he loved me. That would have eradicated so much of my identity issues. Quick story. So when I was in prison, we actually had this thing called Family Reentry Program. And you're allowed to call in like 2 or 3 family members, and they give you snacks, and it's like a whole thing. And we meet, and on that like big meeting day, they have these 3 subjects, and one of them is like communication, another one is like life skills, and the third one is resentments. And each workshop, you like have certain family members come. Well, the first 2 came, and I had different family members come. Well, resentment came, and I didn't know what the word resentment meant, and I looked it up, and I was like, yo, I got resentments. And
Show me some more words. Show me what else I got.
I was like, I having a spiritual awakening. I was like, I want to know more about this, because this is exactly how I'm feeling. And I didn't know that's what I was carrying around for 30 years. So on this third one, I was like, I got some resentments, and it's towards my father. And so he's like
your third. I'm sorry. This was your third time in jail.
No, this was the third workshop of that family reentry program.
All right.
And so this third one comes around. And the first 2, I had like my wife, my mom. My mom's working at the time. But this third one, I was like, I want Dad to come to this one. And I'm going to write out this thing. Like the challenge was you had to write it out and like read it to them. Now, Dad's somebody you don't, back in the day, you don't say I love you. It would have been weird. He would have been like, I love you too, man. Like it just was weird. Crazy. He just didn't do it. Not that he didn't.
Right.
But his paradigm, he was doing better than what his father did. So in his mind, he's good. But to me, I'm like, I needed more. Because in his generation, he got beat with iron cords and all kinds of crazy stuff. He told me his like physical abuse, and my dad didn't like physically pound me in the ground. So in his head, he's like, well, I'm doing better than my father, And so I forgot what I was saying. Oh, and so when it came to reading this to Dad, because he wasn't a man of emotion. I think I only seen him cry once. And so I'm sitting there and I'm shaking, man. And I'm like, he's looking up at me and I'm looking up at him over the paper, and I'm reading this long. Like I take a deep breath and I just read it. And I was like, Dad, I just wanted you to tell me you love me, man. Like I just wanted a hug. Like I just needed that, And it was so humiliating for me to say it as a man.
Yeah, man.
To be like, but through that humiliation, there was a liberation. And so when I'm done reading it, I look up, and this man that's never cried but once in my life, he's got tears in his eyes, and his eyes are bloodshot red, and he's just like sitting there, and he's a big guy, he's big, he's like my superhero, and he's a big, indestructible man. And he says, man, he looks up at me and he says, I'm sorry. He's like, I didn't know. And I was just like, and then mercy came in the room, and then compassion came in the room, because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, how could you not know? But he didn't know because it wasn't modeled.
Yeah.
How could he give me something he had never experienced? And so compassion and grace and mercy came, and then I was like, wow. And so as a father, now I'm a father, I'm like, yo, I had to give Dad some grace because he simply, even in our mistakes, and I hope my kids can give me grace for things that I don't, but, and it just was a paradigm shift for me because I'm like, wow, I wonder how many other things, like my perspective was completely changed to know he wasn't doing it to be malicious. He wasn't doing it to be mean to me. He just didn't know. It wasn't in him to say, attaboy, come on, I kiss you on the forehead. Like, it just wasn't in him. And so the beautiful part is that I can do that for my kids.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be modeled, but through that pain, through that, it can turn around to where my kids, man, they'd probably want me to kiss them less, because I'm really lovey-dovey with my kids.
Embarrassing dad in public.
Yes. It's like, I don't even care. You're going to get this love. But yeah, going back to the, it all started from that moment, and the drugs was just another piece of the pie of who I thought I was. And like I said, if I liked something and you didn't like it, I would quit liking that thing. And if you liked something and I didn't like it, I would make myself like it because I just didn't want people to leave me.
Yeah.
And that can carry over in your Christian walk.
Yeah.
You start to deify pastors and you just don't want them to leave you, and it's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that God could bring it to the light to where I could get some healing and and move past it.
You talk about drugs and alcohol and pornography and all kinds of stuff that you can get addicted to.
Yes.
Some people can never get over. That will never leave them.
Right.
That feeling of trying to chase approval and chase. Yes. I need you to need me, and I want you to want me. Like I just
codependency.
You have to have it. Yeah. to be a whole person.
Yes. That's a lot, and that's that could be a series. Just that, because then you have the drugs, and then on top of that, like the drugs is just the fruit, right? The drugs is just the tip of the. I mean, the real issue is the inner man, right? It's our sinful nature, and it's for me, it was like, man, the drugs like when I got clean. Then I realized how much of a mess I was. I'm like getting clean and getting sober. I always thought if I can just get off drugs, if I can just stop drinking, like I'll be good. And then I got clean, but then I realized like I'm still a mess, And so I'm like, well, what does this mean? Well, I'm just gonna get high then, so I can block it all back out, But doing the work, and most issues do stem from childhood, which mine did. The abandonment issues, the fear of rejection, the need of acceptance. The awesome thing, though, is like whenever I began to walk with Christ, he would help me with that. He would father me, and he would help me in knowing that I don't, because you can get to one extreme or the other, right? We can get so don't leave me, to where we're unhealthily, deifying people and putting them in the place of God. And then on the other hand, I can become so hyper independent to where I just block everyone out. And so I'm trying to keep my heart soft, but also grow wise. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know if I'm getting away from your question.
It's okay. I mean, it's okay to say that you need other people too. I get what you're saying.
Yes.
There's this tension of like, I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. I'm strong. I'm independent. I can do it myself.
Hyper independence.
And I think that's actually kind of, I won't say anti-gospel, but definitely anti-biblical. That's not biblical at all. That's not a biblical way to live in regards to like who you need to fill in gaps that you don't have, to keep you accountable to things, to see the blind spots you don't have, to encourage you in ways that you don't know how to encourage yourself, or maybe even like your wife or, others close to you don't know how to encourage you. I mean, there are ways that my pastor can talk to me that are different than the way my wife can talk to me.
Yes.
and that I need him to.
Absolutely.
But likewise, there's a way that my wife can talk to me that my pastor will never touch. Sure. I mean, that I probably need to hear too. So, no, I'm kind of glad you made that distinction.